Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of Radiance Unfiltered. I'm Maddie and this is Lily, and we are your skincare hosts for today's episode. We'll be talking all of your favourite skincare topics as we did in the previous episode if you haven't already watched, where we discussed adult eczema and alopecia with Dr. Malik. So if you haven't already listened, be sure to check that out. Today we've got Dr. Cornwall, who's with us today. Could you introduce yourself for us?
Hi, my name is Dr. Cornwell. I'm a board-certified dermatologist and Mohs micrographic surgeon, and I'm excited to meet you guys in person, or virtually in person.
Thank you. And today's topic of focus will be the terrifying topic of anti-aging and retinols. So we'll go straight into the questions. Will you be able to explain a little bit about what retinoids are and how do they work on the skin?
Yeah, so retinoids are vitamin A derivatives, and they're fat soluble, so they easily absorb into skin, and then they get converted depending on depending on if you're using retinol, retinal, tretinoin. Retinol needs to be converted into retinal and then tretinoin in order to bind to receptors in the cell. Whereas if you just get tretinoin, then it's binding directly to that receptor. And tretinoin, retinol, retinal, those are all considered first generation retinoids, but you also have this whole class of retinoids that are all vitamin A derivatives. And depending on the chemical structure, they're actually categorized differently. So you also have adapalene, which some people might be aware of because in the States that's Differin gel. It might be Differin gel for you guys too. Also, we use tazarotene, which is prescription only. However, it's also very effective and it's commonly used for acne, but it could also have anti-aging benefits. And then trifarotene is another anti-acne medication that's prescription here in the States. And then we have oral retinoids as well.
Okay, so you've covered the types and what they are. So could you just tell me the difference between what retinol and retinoids are?
Sure. So retinoids is kind of like, I want you to think of retinoids as apples. So that's just a class, right? And then within apples, you could have Macintosh apples, Granny Smith apples, Red Delicious. So you have different subtypes within that greater category. So retinoids is the overall category of vitamin A derivatives or analogs. And then within that, you have tretinoin, you have adapalene, you have tazarotene, and then retinol and retinal are precursors to tretinoin.
It's very complicated, although no, I like the whole apple metaphor. I think that makes it simpler.
A lot more sense.
Definitely.
Perfect. And so what's the difference between retinol and retinal, just for our listeners who might not?
Yeah, so pretty much retinol is like let's say like retinol step 1. So you have retinol and that's one chemical compound. Then that gets converted to retinal, which is also known as retinaldehyde. That's the same thing. And then that gets converted to retinoic acid, also known as tretinoin. Same thing. So tretinoin and retinoic acid are the same thing. And then the retinoic acid is going to bind to receptors on the nuclei in skin cells to stimulate all the good stuff that we want retinoids to do.
Okay. So you've mentioned tretinoin a couple times. How does that work? The same as the other ones, or?
So tretinoin is kind of considered the most potent just because you're kind of giving the cell like exactly what needs to bind to the receptor, as opposed to having to have the cell make the conversions into tretinoin. So it's very potent. It's going to bind to the receptor, and then when it binds to the receptor on the nucleus, it's going to stimulate things like it's going to stimulate cells that create collagen to create collagen. It's going to downregulate the cells that eat away the collagen. It's going to stimulate cell turnover as well. Just to list a few of the actions that it's most prominently known for.
Thank you.
Perfect. And why would you say retinol is more available in skincare products compared to retinoic acid, which is obviously on prescription? Is it because it's stronger?
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, people could still get irritated from plain old retinol, certainly, but tretinoin is considered the most potent version. So yes, exactly what you said. The strength essentially is going to be the limitation why one's prescription, one isn't.
And also, so obviously, I'm guessing the more strength, the more risk there is for a reaction or the body to repel it. So, what are the main risks in general when using these products, whether that be the stronger version or the less stronger, like retinol?
Yes. So we're just going to focus on topical retinoids, but I do want to say like there is we could have a whole discussion separately on oral retinoids. Okay, so that's a whole separate discussion. With topical retinoids, the most common issue is irritation. That's going to be the most common issue. You probably see all these people talking about retinoid uglies or retinol uglies, and that's very common because it's stimulating all the cell turnover, and that will manifest potentially as irritation of your skin when you first start out. You'll become more acclimated to it as you continue to use it. But that's why I'll have patients, in order to reduce this irritation, I kind of give patients guidance on how to start. There's specific parameters you could do, specific things you could do. If you want me to get into it, I'm happy to. You just let me know.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, the more information, the better.
So pretty much I tell my patients start every third night. You also only want to use a little pea-sized amount. Do not slop on a whole amount of it. I tell patients when you apply retinoid, it's almost like having a mini chemical peel. So you really want to, less is more. It's not something you want to, put all over. You use a little pea-sized amount, dot, 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 rub it all in. Now, let's say just doing every third night is too irritating. What you should do after that is you should apply it after applying a moisturizer. So what I would have patients do is I'd have patients apply a moisturizer, let it dry, apply the retinoid, let it dry, apply moisturizer again, let it dry. And then let's say that's still too irritating. Let's say the patient's like, oh, I've done your retinoid sandwich method, which is what I was referring to, where it's moisturizer, retinoid, moisturizer. Then what I would have them do next is actually do what's known as a short contact method. And with that, I would have them do the retinoid sandwich, but wash it off after an hour and then apply moisturizer again.
Okay, that's really...
Yeah, and that usually really improves tolerability.
Wonderful, thank you. Because that actually wasn't...
What else can I tell you guys?
That wasn't one of our questions with the routine, but thank you for explaining that, because I think that clears a lot up.
When would you say people should normally start using retinol in their daily routine? Well, obviously not daily, but...
Okay, so this is actually something I want to touch upon. So what is a first line treatment for acne? Tretinoin, right? So retinoids not only help with anti-aging benefits, but they also, because they help the skin cell turnover, they also benefit acne because it's essentially reducing clogged pores, for lack of a better term. So I would say, I have teenagers, and I think in the United States, it's FDA approved down to like age 9 or 11 or something like that for adapalene, for example. So I'll have teenagers on it for the purpose of acne. But if you're looking for the purpose solely of anti-aging, we know that we start losing collagen in our 20s. So your 20s would be a good time to initiate a retinol if you haven't already.
Okay, that's scary because we're 20. So
yeah,
we better start then.
There's other things that contribute, right? Like sun exposure, drinking, smoking, all these things could also contribute to breakdown of your collagen. So healthy lifestyle behaviors can also benefit you.
So you've said that collagen starts leaving your body when you're 20, is that right?
So overall, what happens is we have 3 layers of skin. We have our epidermis, our dermis, and then the subcutis. So what happens is when we're young, we have a nice thick dermis, and that dermis consists of collagen and elastin fibers. And those collagen and elastin fibers are essentially giving your skin that structure. So what happens is as we age, we lose those collagen and elastin fibers. They break down with age and sun exposure and all those other things I mentioned. So pretty much by using retinoids, you're essentially trying to rejuvenate that collagen and slow down that collagen degradation. And there's some studies showing that it also helps with elastin as well.
And would you say we should start using it at the start of our 20s or mid-20s or late 20s? And how would we go about, like, with an eye cream, for example, that has it in?
Okay, so let's talk about this. I would say that a good time to start would probably be I mean, if you're comfortable starting in your early 20s, why not? You know, why not? In terms of eye creams, what I would say is yes, eye creams could be beneficial for stimulating collagen production around your eyes. However, I would caution that if you're using a retinoid close to your eyes, there is a risk of it getting in your eyes. And if you talk to ophthalmologists, no, I don't see dermatologists really talk about this, but if you talk to ophthalmologists, they'll caution that it could actually affect oil production in your eyes and contribute to dry eyes. So that's just something to be aware of. Like, you just want to make sure you're not getting that transfer into your eyes itself if you're using a retinoid near your eyes.
I
Okay,
never
thank
even
you.
thought about that.
Me neither, because there's a lot of on social media I've seen a lot of people using retinoid eye creams because I think they're in fashion. So it's good to clear that up.
You know, theoretically, if they're not getting into your eyes, it should be fine. But it's just something I'd want to caution people about. If you're like, try to keep them low enough that you're not getting that transfer.
Yeah.
And obviously you've mentioned healthy diet, not smoking, not drinking, all limits aging. Well, we'd like to think so anyway. Is there anything else, any other external factors that you'd recommend steering away from?
I mean, I think those, obviously, like, we have environmental exposures that, like, pollutants and whatnot, that we can't really control. But generally speaking, I think that those are kind of like the big ones, in particular, certainly. And that's why, I tell anyone who wants an anti-aging skincare regimen, the number one thing is sun protection. Sun will degrade those fibers in your dermis, those collagen and elastin fibers. So you really want to sun protect in the day and use your retinoid at night, ideally. Although some retinoids, you could like adapalene, for example, you could use during the day, technically speaking, but just for simplicity, it's easier to just use your SPF in the day and your retinoid at night, typically.
Perfect combo to not age.
What would you say is the most important thing to remember when you're using a retinol or starting out using it?
Low and slow. You don't want to use a lot. As I mentioned, that little pea-sized amount. Start every third night. Make sure you're moisturized after using if you're not going to be doing the sandwich method to begin with, because you definitely would need a moisturizer after. Irritation can happen in the beginning, even when you're doing all these things. So really go low and slow. And also the importance of consistency. If you're just going to use it, like, if you do it every third night and you're very consistent about it, and then over time you kind of upregulate to using it every second night, and then you increase it to nightly, and you're consistent with it for years and years and years, that's how you see the benefit. It's the kind of thing, like, you really have to be dedicated to it and you have to stick with it. I will say, anecdotally speaking, this isn't like scientific, but my husband has been using adapalene since he was 13 years old, and now he's like late 30s, so over 20 years. And literally, my husband doesn't have a single wrinkle. I'm not even kidding. I'm like, how is your skin so perfect?
That's why.
So yes, I do really think that if you're consistent with it for decades, you will see those benefits.
Okay, that's good to know. And well, you've covered a lot of our questions. You've been brilliant. We had a couple of reader questions actually, so I want to make this clear because we do want to include you. Just you've been brilliant and already covered a lot of them. So we had somebody ask, a member of our team ask, whether retinoids could be used as well for acne apart from anti-aging, which you did cover and say yes. So if you want to expand a little bit more on that, or we covered it quite well though.
Sure. So what happens is in your follicles, you get cells that stick together, and that's part of what contributes to acne formation. So by using a retinoid, you're essentially getting rid of those cells from sticking together because you're stimulating that cell turnover, and that breaks up that portion of, I guess, the mechanism that contributes to acne. So that's how the retinoids will help with acne. And I think that retinoids are excellent for acne. They're definitely a first-line treatment. We use them topically for acne. We use them orally for acne in the form of isotretinoin. So yes, retinoids are first line for acne. And I always tell my patients, like, if you have acne, if you have mild to moderate acne, we're always going to incorporate a retinoid. It's a workhorse.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And why would you say some brands recommend vitamin A and others say retinol? Are they the same? Is there a difference? Or is it just misconception?
So But vitamin A, you're talking about like oral vitamin A or like a topical vitamin A, just to clarify.
Just
I
within
think
like
just
drugstore products
Topical,
generally.
yeah.
Yeah, topically.
No, I wouldn't say vitamin A equals retinol. You know, they're different chemical structures. Certainly it's a derivative of vitamin A, but it's not like one and the same. And I would say the formulations are different. So I would stick with what things are formulated for. Like retinol is formulated for the purpose you're looking for, like in terms of anti-aging. So that's what I would go to. I wouldn't go and just try to find some vitamin A capsule and like
No.
rub it on your
Yeah.
face.
And if someone were to look for vitamin A topical ointment or cream or product, what would that be for? Would it not be for anti-aging or acne?
I think that people probably came up with it because they're like, why not, right? Like, essentially, retinol is like a vitamin A derivative. But once again, everything's about formulation, you know, and I would probably use retinol over vitamin A. I just don't think the formulation is going to be as effective if you just like slather vitamin A on your face.
Okay, thank you
Definitely.
for clearing that up.
And for people with sensitive skin who use retinol, why would they get peeling? Because a lot of people in our TikTok comments says they started using retinol and they've got sensitive skin and now their skin will go red and it won't stop peeling.
Yes, because it's that cell turnover, right? So it's essentially like you're essentially getting rid of those dead skin cells. Like that cell does, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. The cellular turnover is causing you to essentially start shedding those dead skin cells.
when used excessively, too much, then that
Yes,
could really
that
be
certainly
damaging.
could also contribute to it, you know, like less is more, go low and slow, as I mentioned, and just as in and of itself, even if you do all those things, the whole purpose of retinoid is to stimulate that cell turnover. It makes the cells less sticky, like the cells aren't as cohesive, so then you have better turnover. So all those things contribute to essentially getting irritation or flaky skin or whatnot.
Okay, brilliant.
And now, if you don't mind, we're going to delve into some of our TikTok comments that have been left on our videos. Some of them were a bit wild. But the first one is, what risk comes with putting strong retinol on sensitive skin? But obviously you've covered that basically. But would you say there's any other guidance that you could say about using it on sensitive skin other than going slowly?
Is there any way of combining it properly?
Well, pretty much what I'd want to ensure is you're not using other actives in the same regimen. So I wouldn't go and use a retinoid and then go use a glycolic acid exfoliant and this other serum. You know, you want to really just keep other active ingredients to a minimum when you're implementing a retinoid into your skincare regimen. And so I'd like pretty much focus on gentle cleansers unless it's for the purpose of acne and you know you're trying to use like a benzoyl peroxide and a tretinoin at night or something like that. A benzoyl peroxide in the morning, a tretinoin at night, or something of that nature as guided by your dermatologist, fine. But generally speaking, if you're just trying to implement like a retinol for anti-aging, then I would definitely try to keep everything else very gentle skincare. You know, you don't want a bunch of actives. Don't use 800 active ingredients. Just a gentle cleanser, you know, like in general, right? In the morning, if you want to wash your face, use a gentle cleanser. You don't have to wash your face in the morning. That's up to you. And then if you want to use a vitamin C serum, if you're using a retinol, make sure it's a vitamin C serum that's not going to irritate you. For me, I can't tolerate L-ascorbic acid vitamin C. It's too irritating for me. I only tolerate tetrahexadecyl ascorbic version. So in that case, that might be something that someone else might benefit from too, like using a gentler version of vitamin C. Then you would use a moisturizer, and I would definitely usually I say moisturizer is optional, but if you're implementing a retinoid into your skincare regimen at night, I would use a moisturizer in the morning and at night. And then you would use your sunscreen, because if you're not sun protecting, then what's the point, right? Like the sun is our biggest aging, so like one of our biggest aging sources outside of internal sources. So definitely want to protect against whatever external factors we can. Then at night you'd want to cleanse, and I'm always big on cleansing, because if you have a bunch of sunscreen left on your face and makeup left on your face, then you probably would have less penetration of your retinoid, potentially. And then you would want to cleanse your face, you would want to use your retinol, and then you'd want to apply your moisturizer. And if you're using the sandwich method, apply the moisturizer, retinol, moisturizer.
Okay, brilliant. I must say, that first one was quite light because they get progressively worse, the TikTok comments. We started with an easy one. The next one is, we do wonder who did this, but we don't judge. What are the risks of getting rid of self-tan by using a dishwasher tablet in the bath? So we can guess the risk of this already, but I was wondering if there was a dermatology point of view to this, where you could explain why.
I would highly caution not to do that. It would be incredibly irritating for your skin barrier. So dishwasher detergent, that kind of soap, is incredibly alkaline, and our skin is a little bit acidic to begin with. So you're really messing with your skin pH and setting yourself up for skin barrier disaster by doing that.
Thank you. We did think that, but
Yeah. The next one is kind of worse almost. Someone used a nail polish as a cleanser. What would you say the risks of using that are?
So is it nail polish remover? Acetone is what they're using?
presuming so,
Yeah.
yes.
It's actually interesting because when we do chemical peels, we might use acetone before certain chemical peels as a degreasing agent. However, no one's getting a chemical peel every night, and chemical peels are done by professionals. So I would caution against doing that. And also acetone has, I don't know if you've ever stepped in a nail salon, but acetone fumes are no joke. And I don't think it's something that you want like coming in contact with your face, where you're going to be inhaling so much of those fumes and doing it on a regular basis. That just doesn't sound safe to me. If it's done in a dermatologist's office, it's going to be a well-ventilated area. It's a very controlled environment. It's done at specific time intervals. It's not the same as just like, oh, let me acetone my face.
Well, to be fair, there's a logic to it then. Because
Yeah.
I originally thought there was no logic whatsoever, and why on earth would you do that? But I can see the person's logic. But when I walk into a nail polish place, like, I get dizzy the second I walk in. It's so strong. So I can't imagine doing that every night.
And what would you say, this one is also absolutely crazy. What would you say the risks are of using a toothpick to get rid of your blackheads on your nose?
Scarring, particularly. I
Yeah.
mean, scarring is so hard to treat. It's really not worth it. If you're concerned about blackheads, then use a cleanser with salicylic acid. Use a retinoid like adapalene, which is available over the counter in the States at least. Don't go and physically try to remove them because the scarring is not worth the risk.
There you have it.
I don't even know how you could come up with doing that.
No.
The feeling of putting a toothpick in your
Face.
I can't even imagine.
Don't do that, guys. The next one, well, this person sweared on this. This
Yeah.
person said that this works for them. So I do see the logic, but coffee grounds as a face scrub. Like granules.
This is where I want to go into it. Would you want to use, I prefer chemical exfoliants over physical exfoliants. Using the coffee ground, that's literally a physical exfoliant. It's like doing a sugar scrub, you're literally taking something abrasive and scrubbing off your skin. Now, are you accomplishing that? Are you scrubbing? Are you exfoliating? Sure you are, but you're also causing a lot of trauma to your skin in the process. I would rather someone use something like an exfoliant or a retinoid that's going to stimulate cell turnover instead of using a physical exfoliant.
And what about the actual coffee? Would that be bad for your skin?
I guess the question, which I don't have an answer to, is how well it would be absorbed into the skin. Now, we know that caffeine could be beneficial in certain ways, but if you're using a cream with caffeine in it was formulated specifically,
Yeah.
if you're not having penetration of something into your skin, then it's not going to do anything. And I don't know that if you're taking like the coffee itself, how much penetration you will or will not have.
Also,
So it's hard to, bottom line, it's kind of hard to say. I need
Yeah.
like a study. I need like some, like a group of people who did the coffee grounds and a group of people who didn't, and particular measurements. And obviously that's not how it is. So
Yeah.
Maybe not recommended, just for now, for the time being.
I would limit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of exfoliants, someone said they used a foot file to exfoliate their face. Is that kind of dangerous in the same sense of the coffee grounds?
I mean, you're literally inducing like skin barrier compromise, you're potentially going to lead to scarring, which is, as I mentioned, incredibly hard to treat. Could also cause post-inflammatory pigmentation, which is also hard to treat for a lot of people. So the risks, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know what the benefit of that would be, frankly. I would not do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't see this and our viewers can't either, but our camera girl, Yufan, is giggling at these comments. So actually, this is a classic one, and I must admit, I've done this myself, and I'm probably not the only person in this room that's tried it, but toothpaste on acne, on spots. It's said to dry them out, but...
So I'd actually be concerned about using toothpaste on your face, and one prominent reason is people don't realize, they think they have acne, but they actually have perioral dermatitis. And fluoride in toothpaste is actually a big trigger of perioral dermatitis. So you could actually be adding insult to, you could actually be making things worse when you think you're making it better. Even if it looks a little better in the beginning, maybe for some people it is, it could actually be reflaring you or stimulating a flare of perioral dermatitis if you didn't have it to begin with. So you really don't want to keep toothpaste, at least fluoridated toothpaste, on your face.
Yeah, no, I have heard about that, actually. I did an interview last week for one of our articles on perioral dermatitis, and the dermatologist did say that could cause it. And so I'm very thankful that hasn't happened to me, because that was that was my bit in my skincare routine.
Stick with, I love acne hydrocolloid patches. Those are wonderful. Use that instead of toothpaste.
And someone actually said that sleeping with makeup improved their skin. So could you explain a bit of that? I mean, you explained how makeup's obviously bad for you before, but someone said this seemed to work for them in the comments.
I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? I don't have any data showing that that's actually the case. This is just one person claiming that their skin's better. Like, I don't even have a picture of what their skin looked like before and after, and neither do you. So this is all hearsay, and I don't know why that would be the case. Maybe they just think they look prettier, so they think their skin looks better.
Yeah, when they wake up in the morning with makeup on.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. I could not do that.
No.
One thing is accidentally falling asleep after a night out, and another thing is doing it every single day to improve your skin. I can't see how that...
Yeah, multiple days without cleansing.
Ugh. Anyways, that's the end of our TikTok comment questions. Thank you so much for coming on. Would you like to add anything at all?
I mean, it was really nice meeting you guys. I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. Originally, Maddie and I were scheduled for the day I went into labor. So I'm glad that I was able to follow through on it.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for watching and listening, guys. And we do have an episode 3 coming. If you haven't watched episode 1, go watch it. And I hope you've enjoyed episode 2. And thank you, Doctor, for coming on. And that's it from us, really.
We will see you guys in the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed. Bye.
Bye.